Hello everybody, my name is Nathan Fecco, also known as Fabubrik. This is my first YouTube video, and really all I want to achieve with this YouTube channel is just to talk about things that I think about, on a daily basis, things going on in the world, philosophy, art, whatever that may be. And yeah, there's no real, it's not going to be video essays. It's more going to be like video diaries, I guess you could say. And things that I think are just important. And at the same time, I'll be drawing. I know my setup is pretty terrible. I'm recording off my iPad. It's all I got. You also will be seeing the drawing backwards because this is the only way I can set it up in the time being. But it is what it is. I'll flip the page around like this to show you exactly what I'm drawing. That way maybe you can get some sort of idea while you're watching. I'm gonna list the topics I wish to talk about. Maybe I'll go on some tangents, hopefully not. And I'll show you the list as well. First thing is kind of just, I want to talk about the general state of the world / how I feel, and how a lot of other people might be feeling. Other topics I might touch on briefly are ICE, Israel, Trump, Epstein, and I'm not only going to be talking about negative stuff. It's sad because a lot of stuff going on in the world is negative, but there are definitely some positive things. And one thing I really want to talk about as well is the Channel 5 news coverage. Channel 5, if you don't know what that is, it's run by Andrew Callahan, one of what I believe to be one of the last true investigative journalists. He has his own YouTube channel and he goes around covering different topics. Andrew Callahan, great channel, good journalist, and I wanted to talk about his coverage of the homicide rate decrease in Baltimore. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was Buddhism, this guy named Eckhart Tolle, and Jesus. Now, I'm not necessarily religious in any sense. I'm not Christian, I'm not Jewish, I'm not Muslim. I wouldn't even necessarily consider myself a Buddhist. I just agree with a lot of their beliefs, and I agree with a lot of what Jesus stood for. And I'm sure if I read the Quran, I would agree with a lot of what Muhammad had to say. Get started drawing. I was thinking about doing some sort of like robot. If you've ever seen, I believe it's Castle in the Sky. It's a Studio Ghibli movie. There's a robot that has like plants growing off of him and stuff, and he kind of takes care of like the flowers there and whatnot. And I just think that is a really cute and cool kind of idea. But yeah, general state of the world and how I'm feeling recently. I think we can all agree that things are pretty crazy right now. Maybe that's an understatement. Maybe it is, we feel like it's worse because we see all of it online. Maybe it's always been that way. I don't know, but the information age definitely changes that aspect, and I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed, confused, sad, angry, all of these different emotions. And I don't think the internet as a whole has contributed, it hasn't contributed positively that much, in terms of making people feel like they can do something about it because of just the sheer quantity of information that's going around. And I don't know, everybody, I feel like, has a sense of hopelessness in terms of what they can do to change things. And I won't lie, I'm not going to sit here and say that's unjustified. I feel helpless sometimes. And generally, like, there's just too much going on to really be able to do anything about it. And I think that's true in certain ways. But I also think what matters most as, us regular people who, don't have a lot of money or don't have a lot of influence, or maybe even time to look into certain things or fight against certain things. I think it's kind of our responsibility to treat the people around us with respect and kindness, because, we can talk about something that's going on across the world and then be a dick to our neighbor, and then, it doesn't matter. You might support something positive or an organization that's doing something positive across the world, but if you're a dick to your neighbor, then, that kind of, your actual impact on the world kind of gets canceled out by being a dick to your neighbor. So yeah, I know it's hard because a lot of people can come across as assholes and stuff, and I'm not saying I'm some sort of saint. I definitely need to work on how I treat people, how I react to certain things. But I think it's important to remember that all of us, kind of at the bottom are in the same position, whether it's left or right or black or white, or Asian or Muslim or Christian or Jewish. We're all kind of in the same boat, especially if you're not some sort of, powerful politician or billionaire. We're kind of all in the same boat in that regard. So I think we should all try and treat each other a little kinder, and with a little more respect, just because of that, common relation in terms of status and power, but yeah, I think we need to step away from political talking points and, well, my camp says this, I support this person, so this must be true. It aligns with what my party believes, or it aligns with what my group of people believes. And I think we need to move away from that rhetoric, because I don't think it's gotten us very far. It kind of just leads to everybody disagreeing with each other about everything. And I think we just need to, be honest about how we really feel. Don't stop trying to prove everybody wrong. Stop saying like you're evil. I'm not saying there aren't evil people, and I definitely think we should point out evil and not ignore it. Like this whole Epstein thing, it is heinous, and all these politicians involved trying to cover it up I believe, are evil. But we all have potential for evil and stuff, and I think we should recognize that. But also at the same time, we all have the potential to be evil, but we also all have the potential to be amazing, loving, caring human beings. And I think we should talk to each other in that way and realize that the majority of Americans, and I think the majority of people around the world, would just want, better lives for themselves. We all want a fair opportunity to, be happy and fulfilled in this world. And I think if we start talking to each other in that manner, I think a lot of people would start finding common ground. I think it's scary and difficult, and I don't know what the solution is necessarily, and I'm not here to provide a solution, but I think if we did talk to each other in that manner, that at least, you might be able to make relationships within your own life a little better. And I think if everybody does that, it might make, communities better, on a smaller basis. But if enough people do that, then, it could create a big impact across the world. And that might be optimistic and stuff, but you know, I think we all need a little bit of something to latch onto and be hopeful about. I see a lot of people, you know, talking about a lot of these ICE shootings. For the record, both Renee Good and Alex, I think both of those are totally unjustified. I think they were both murdered, and I think it's pretty blatantly obvious that they were murdered, and there was absolutely no reason for either of them to be killed. However, I do think that, you know, when somebody who doesn't agree with that standpoint comes out and says that they don't agree with that standpoint, I don't think it's productive to immediately just, you know, bash them or shit on them, call them evil, because once you do that, people's defenses go up, and then nothing you say will be able to convince them otherwise. And I think, you know, there are some people that, even if you're rational with them, you're kind, you're patient, it won't break through to them. And I think that's the case for any topic. You know, somebody could believe that Barney is the creator of the universe, and no matter how much patience you have with them or compassion or how kind you are with them and calmly give them the facts, they're still going to believe that Barney created the universe. You know, there's nothing you can do about that. But I think a lot of people will listen to calm reason. Somebody who's like far right probably won't even give somebody far, like very far left, the time of day. But maybe somebody somewhere in the middle, you know, like a libertarian, maybe they're fiscally conservative but socially liberal, you know, maybe since they agree with that person on certain points, that they would be able to sway them over in certain ways. I think that's part of the problem, is that so much of these topics are emotionally charged, that people start with anger and start with accusations, when really at the end of the day, most of us Americans and most people across the world are in that same class of people that are looked down upon by people in power. You know, Trump doesn't care about people in MAGA, and Obama didn't really care about people in America. At least I don't think so. Neither did Biden, neither did George W. Bush. I don't think any of these politicians really care about any of us. I think the kind of person it takes to gain that much power is attractive to a certain kind of person, and I think those certain kinds of people inherently at that point just don't have the same interests as normal people. But I think common American people, whether they're far left or far right, I think do share at least the common interest that they want life for Americans to be better. I think people across the world who are not powerful want things to be better for themselves, their families, and everybody else across the world. And I think that's where what we need to recognize more often. Because if we don't recognize that, then those powerful people that most of us dislike and recognize as too powerful, too influential, they win. That's what they want us to do. They want us to think that, you know, the guy down the street is your enemy, you know. Most of these people aren't going to hurt each other, you know. The people that are at least getting us to hurt each other, or thinking that we should hurt each other, are the people at the top. And their allegiance is to money and power. And if you look at all these people, and their actions and what they do, it's pretty clear. Why is it that, Trump is saying, I'm going to release the Epstein files, I'm going to release the Epstein files, and when he passes that law, the DOJ lags behind. They don't release them. When they do release them, it's not fully released. There's things that are redacted that shouldn't be, names that aren't redacted that should be redacted. Why do you think that is? Why do you think so many politicians are silent about the Epstein files right now? It's because they're fucking in them, and they're trying to protect each other powerful people. They're trying to protect each other so they can keep their power and they can keep their influence. That's all they care about. I don't care who it is. There may be a handful of politicians that really do care about the American people, that care about people around the world, but it is far and few between. And I think that's what we need to focus on. Just because you voted for Trump, doesn't mean you need to ride his meat hardcore. You don't have to support everything he did. And you don't need a video of him sexually assaulting children to connect the dots that he did it, or at least knew that it was happening and that he was involved in some sort of way. Just like, Bill Clinton or George W. Bush, you don't need a video of them doing these things to know that, hey, this is, not right. Whether they were sexually assaulting kids or not, it's pretty clear that a lot of these powerful people knew what was going on, and they didn't do anything to stop it. Even people who had power to stop it, Same thing with Israel and Gaza. I believe it's a genocide. I believe it's an ethnic cleansing. Whether you believe that or not, I don't see any reason why we should be involved with Israel and what they're doing. I don't see any reason why we should be giving them that much money. I do see why our government does it. The politicians receive millions of dollars from AIPAC. They probably receive personal gifts under the table from Israeli officials, powerful people in Israel, and they control our officials, and that's probably why we're involved. That's probably why we're supporting Israel, But the common American person, drop the Israel has a right to defend itself. We can all admit, if the apartment complex I live in, if I go out, if me and like 2 other people that live in this complex went out and like bombed the 7-Eleven next door, that 7-Eleven doesn't have a right to just blow up the entire complex. That's ridiculous, And the photos that are coming out of there are disgusting and heart-wrenching, and it's just disheartening. We don't need to be a part of that, And the fact that these politicians will do anything they can to defend it, they'll call these photos fake. They'll say it's fabricated by Hamas. Use your eyes, people. This shit's not fake. We have multiple doctors coming back saying they've seen these things in person. We have people in the military who are saying that this reminds them of things that happened in Iraq. I think we're coming to a turning point where, maybe like 10 years ago, if people were talking about this stuff and it was considered like crazy conspiracy, like there's no way that could happen. There's no way that's a real thing, that's impossible. But now it's becoming common public opinion that, yeah, this stuff is possible, it did happen, and a lot of people are distrusting the government now and realizing who the real teams are. It's not people versus people. It's not the common American versus the other common American. It is us against these people in power. And I think, here, I'll give you guys an update on what I'm drawing. Just a little guy, a little robot guy. Don't know entirely exactly what I'm going to do yet with that, but there we go. But yeah, this stuff with Israel, this stuff with Epstein, stuff with Trump and ICE, it's scary. I think we're coming to a point where normal people are realizing that the world is far different than any of us believed it to be, you know. You don't necessarily have a fair shot in America. People in power, the people elected, whether you can't trust what they say, you can't trust what they say in their campaigns, because whoever's got the money is just going to influence them to do otherwise. You know, Trump was the peace president. We're about to go to a war with Iran. You know, we kidnapped Venezuela's dictator. And don't get me wrong, Maduro's a terrible person, but we have no right to bomb a country and kidnap their leader, whether we like them or not, whether they did terrible things or not. There just isn't a precedent for that, you know. And they want to talk about drugs and how it was for drugs and how he smuggled all these drugs into the country. But Trump pardoned, I believe it was a drug lord from Honduras, who is responsible for funneling huge amounts of drugs into the country, and he pardoned them. So he just lies. It's a blatant lie, and that's what all these people in power do. And then all the stuff they say that is true gets funneled to their supporters, and that's what they believe. And anything outside of that is lies, and that's what the way they want it to be. And it goes the same way for the right and for the left. There are lies that come out from the left that get left-leaning people to hate people on the right. Same thing with the right, to get people on the right to hate people on the left. It's the same strategy. Again, it's the people in power lying, conniving, planning, and doing all this stuff to do whatever they want, keep themselves in power. And yeah, they use people as pawns to gain that power, and then they fuck us all over, you know. It's fucked up, and it's terrible. But I think it's a good opportunity in these times to recognize that, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to come together as a people, and rebuild our sense of community and rebuild our sense of togetherness. You know, we're the same. We are all the same. We're all getting fucked by the government the same exact way. We need to come together. And I honestly think at some point, I don't know if there will be a revolution or a civil war. At this point, it seems like it's up to the people to bring justice to these evil, pedophile, corrupt, piece of shit fucking people who just are poisoning the world with all these terrible fucking things. I think it's up to us, you know. And I saw a clip of, I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and other anime and stuff, and I saw a clip of a guy with like the orange mohawk. I don't know why I can't remember. I think that's Android 19, I believe. It's when Cell like chopped his head off because Android 19, you know, switched sides or whatever, and he's talking to Super Saiyan Gohan.
It is not a sin to fight for the right cause. There are those who words alone will not reach. You are gentle. You do not like to hurt. But it is because you cherish life that you must protect it. Just let it go.
I won't watch anymore! I won't watch this anymore!
Even if you're a pacifist, there comes a time where you have to fight. And I think that time is coming. And I think it's up to us to bring these people justice. And I hear a lot of people saying things like, you know, Jews are controlling everything. Does Israel have their hand in a lot of stuff? Yes, I think that's Zionism. I don't think Zionists are real Jewish people. There are tons of Hasidic Jews and Jews in America that will tell you the same exact thing. They don't believe that the people in power in Israel are real Jews. They don't believe that Zionists are real Jews. And those people are our allies too, you know? And it's not just Israel, you know, it is our government, which is influenced by Israel. But I mean, Russia came out and started talking about how they're going to be switching their focus in Ukraine onto the powerful banks in Europe, the Rothschilds, Israel, and trying to switch the narrative and get support in the West for what he's doing in Ukraine. Meanwhile, all these powerful people in Russia are trillionaire oligarchs. They don't care about the Americans. They don't care about the Rothschilds. I guarantee you they're in bed with half of these powerful people too. They're also guilty of the same exact shit. Xi Jinping, he don't give a fuck about us. He don't give a fuck about his people. Putin doesn't give a fuck about his people, doesn't give a fuck about us. None of these powerful people care about us. It's the people. It is the people, not those evil fucking people in power. It is the normal person. It's the guy at 7-Eleven who's checking you out. It's the guy in line buying a Red Bull so they can go lay concrete. It's the teacher. It's the gay bartender. It's the stripper. It's the sex worker. It's the transgender lady. All of these people. It's the white person. It's the black person. It's the Mexican. It's the Asian. It's all of us against them. It doesn't matter if the person in power is the same color as you. They don't give a fuck about you. It doesn't matter if they say they're in the same religion. They don't give a fuck about you. Donald Trump says he's a Christian. Look at the way he talks about women. Look at the way he's treated women. Multiple sexual allegations. If a man came to your house and wanted to date your daughter, and you look into him or you ask him questions and you find out he has multiple women accusing him of sexual assault, you're not going to let that motherfucker near your daughter. That's how we need to treat these politicians. They're all fucking guilty of this shit. Again, handful, maybe good ones. Most of them fucking suck, and we need to recognize that, and we need to take power back into our own hands and get justice. And I'm not saying overthrow the government or anything, but there's going to come a time where in your life where maybe, I don't know, somebody in power is abusing their power. You see a cop pulling over somebody who didn't do anything wrong. You know, sometimes like me and my mom, if we would pass a cop pulling somebody over, we'd park on the other side of the street and just check things out and see what's going on and, you know, make sure that person's safe and that the cop isn't doing anything irresponsible. Or if your local representative is, you know, corrupt or doing things that aren't in the interest of your people, petition them, write letters, whatever. If ICE comes into your town and they're kidnapping people, they're assaulting people, they're mistreating people, stand up for them. You know, we don't have to overthrow the government to let them know that we don't support what they're doing. We can do this by supporting the people directly around us. I don't have to fly to Gaza and fight the IDF to stand up against them. You know, I think the best way for me to fight the people in power is to support the people that live around me and talk about these things with the people around me and try and spread the truth and encourage people to find the truth. And I think that's what we all need to do. And it's hard, and I don't know if it'll work, and maybe in 20 years we'll be in some dystopian future like 1984 or Brave New World. Maybe that's the way it's going to be, you know? And I hope not, but power to the people. We got to remember that. Power to the people. It's like in One Piece, it's like, I think what was the Philippines, or I think it was in Southeast Asia. There's a country right now that's like overthrowing their government, and they're waving pirate flags from One Piece. It's sick. We need to start doing stuff like that. On the news, it's not, you know, once in a while where you're like, oh, that's terrible. I feel so bad, you know. It's happening to everybody. Everybody is getting fucked over. Everybody's getting fucked over. And when you get a chance to stand up against that, take that chance. Even if it's something like this, making a YouTube channel and talking about what you think. I think it's important that we let our voices be known. We let people know we don't stand for this shit, and we're not gonna accept it. We want justice for the people that did these horrible things in the Epstein files. We want justice for the horrible things that are going on in Gaza. We want justice for the horrible things that are happening in Ukraine. We want justice for the horrible things that are happening in China. They were literally putting a certain group of Muslims into concentration camps, into work camps. Justice for that, you know? And there are protests in China and stuff. You probably won't see that because they don't want you to see it, you know? Power to the people. And I know a lot of this feels negative, but I think this turmoil, these hard times, I think just like in World War II, where people really, like, countries and people banded together to fight against a common enemy. Even though the times were terrible, I think it forces us to recognize our humanity, recognize that we need to work together if we want to stop this. Yeah, we need to band together. In hard times like this, I think it forces people to recognize that their neighbor is their neighbor. They are the same, and we need to help each other and fight for each other. Enough of the negative stuff, even though inherently I don't think it's negative. I think it's a chance, it's an opportunity for us to fight together. But one of the positives I wanted to touch on was Channel 5's coverage, Andrew Callahan's coverage of the homicide rate going down in Baltimore. I imagine most people who aren't followers of Channel 5 wouldn't be aware of this. It's the only place I've heard about it. Literally, I haven't heard anything about it anywhere else besides Channel 5. So shout out to Andrew Callahan. I'm going to link that video in the description. Also, some other videos I might link in the description are probably CoffeeZilla's video on the Epstein files. I think it's on his second channel, Voidzilla. I'll link it. Independent journalist who just investigated connections and the influence that AIPAC and Israel have over our politicians. I'll link that. I'm going to link something art-related, probably from my boy Chroma Moma. He does a lot of cool stuff. I really like his art style. He does a lot of like mech drawings and things like that. So I'll probably link one of his videos as well. But yeah, this Channel 5 coverage of Baltimore basically goes in there. He interviews a little kid who talks about how like he got his first gun when he was like 9 or like 12 years old or something like that. And he was saying, you know, it's easy. He was saying that you could get it from your brother, you could get it from one of your brother's friends, it doesn't matter. You can get a gun easy. It doesn't matter what age. And he was getting involved in drug dealing and gangbanging and stuff like that. But there was this group of men who came by. I don't remember exactly how they met, but he was just telling them about this program that they have, trying to get people out of the gangs, trying to get people to turn away from gun violence, and try and, you know, use skills that they have for a better purpose. You know, they don't, telling them like, and showing them that you don't have to do these things to survive. You know, this young man, I believe he got a job and he does photography. And he was talking about, he's like, he was telling the story of how he was trying to bring a gun with him to one of these meetings that this program was having or something like that. And, you know, the leader of the group patted him down found the gun, told him to go throw it out, throw it in the water, get rid of it. He comes back, he didn't throw it out, he finds the gun again, and the guy tells him, he's like, listen, man, if you throw this gun in the water, I am with you all the way. I got your back. I'm here for you. And he threw it in the water, and this young man's life was changed, you know? And this program also, like, involves people, you know, instead of, if there's a conflict, you know, I think he said the statistic, the gun violence in Baltimore, a lot of it's not even gang related. A lot of it is personal disputes, you know. This guy fucked my girlfriend, or this guy said this about this person, and it escalates and turns into gun violence. A huge majority of the gun violence there results from that. That's what this guy was saying. So he said, instead of calling the police right away, you know, they'll call somebody. People in the area will call somebody that these two people know to come in and mediate, and, you know, try and convince them to resolve their problems without using violence. And it's been super effective. Like, their gun violence rates have gone down a lot. A couple points in that video, I started crying because it was just so amazing seeing, you know, something like gun violence, inner city gun violence. It's just so heartbreaking to me. You know, I live in a town, it's outside of Philly, and, you know, when growing up, like, there was stuff that would happen here and there, but over the years, it's gotten so much worse. And I think it's just tied to the fact that people are so angry and upset. And I think a lot of the violence here has also come from, you know, personal disputes that didn't need to happen. I moved into an apartment complex when I moved out of my mom's house, still in Norristown. And within like the first month, there were like 2 shootings, like right on my block. And both of them, young men died. One of them was like 19 years old. That might have been a more recent one, I can't remember. But it's just heartbreaking, you know? And seeing something like this happening in Baltimore, which is notorious for its violence, where the homicide rates are going down like a significant amount. I think it was like, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, and I'll double check, and I'll add the statistic in the description. But I think it was like the first year ever, like, or not ever, but like within recent history, where the gun violence in Baltimore didn't reach over 100 homicides. And they were consistently known for reaching like 300, you know, 350, like shit like Chicago, you know? And it just made me cry. I was like, this is amazing. How could I have not heard of this before? I was dumbfounded that only Channel 5 had been covering this. So I was just very happy about that. Wow, I'm doing a terrible job of drawing and talking at the same time. All right, I'm going to try and, you know, add a little bit of quick, glowy little accents here. By the way, I have an Instagram under the same name, Fabubrik. I have more full pieces. These drawings will probably just be simple little stuff like this, but those ones are more complicated and I think a little cooler. But, you know, I just always wanted my channel to be somewhat art related. So, you know, here I am drawing simple little robots floating around with little glowy stuff in the background. You know, maybe I'll talk about my drawing history a little bit as well. I drew all the time when I was a kid. Mostly traced like Dragon Ball Z stuff, you know, things like that. But I've been drawing as long as I can remember, since like kindergarten. You know, my friend got me into it. He showed me a drawing he did of a Dragon Ball Z character, and I'm like, that's sick. Like, I want to do that. And I started drawing. For a while, like throughout middle school, I would draw here and there, but I was never like serious about it. You know, I would like I would use like a Dragon Ball Z or One Piece like picture and try and draw it 1-to-1, and I wasn't very good at it. I was okay. But in high school, end of high school, I started taking it more seriously. I got an iPad Pro, did a lot of digital drawing. Honestly, for the last like 5 years, I did mostly digital drawing until like about 2 years ago. I've been doing strictly traditional, you know, dip pen, brush pen stuff. What is the name of this? This is a good nib I like using. It's the Bras Steno. I think Chroma Moma uses these as well, the guy I mentioned earlier, but they're great. I love them. Dip pen, India ink. Hopefully you guys can see that. And this brush pen, it's a Bimoji brush pen. But yeah, so I've been doing a lot of traditional stuff now. It just feels more tactile, more like, maybe not intuitive, but like I feel more connected to the paper, if you know what I mean, versus like digital. You know, I think digital really helped me practice and get a lot better. Made it a little easier transitioning into traditional, where I could be more creative and more explorative in what I do and stuff like that. I do want to touch on Buddhism, Eckhart Tolle, and Jesus. My brother introduced me to Eckhart Tolle. He showed me this book called Power of Now, and his emphasis is on shifting our consciousness away from the ego and focusing on the present moment. And once you start doing that, you know, you start seeing things within yourself. People like, who's that famous psychologist who talks a lot about like the shadow, you know, and you need to look into your shadow and to learn about yourself, the dark parts of yourself. And like in Eckhart Tolle's words, he would say that's the ego. And Eckhart Tolle has a lot of links to Buddhism and stuff, a lot of Buddhist influence. But he also talks about Jesus, because I think fundamentally all these people are talking about the same thing, you know, how important presence is in freeing your conscious, you know, not letting your ego control you and control your reactions to things and disrupt your peace of mind, you know. I think no matter what situation you're in, if you're present, and it doesn't mean you eliminate your emotions, you know, it just means you can sit with your emotions, you can recognize them, you can find peace with your emotions. Being present doesn't eliminate the hurt, you know, doesn't eliminate the sadness, but it makes it manageable, you know. It makes it livable. You can still live a life. You can still come to terms with it. You can still be at peace and continue to live a happy life, even through the hard things. I'm not like the best at explaining this. I will link to the audiobook for The Power of Now, so you can listen to it yourself. I think it is maybe not the answer, but I genuinely think it's the truth, because, you know, after listening to that, I tried practicing it for a long time. You know, I've slipped out of it here and there. It's difficult, you know. I'm not going to say it's simple or easy, but shifting your consciousness in that way, being present, you know, it's the only thing we actually have. Being present, the present moment is the only thing that we have. We don't know what the future is going to be, so why just act like the future doesn't exist, you know? You can't control what will happen in the future. The past doesn't exist anymore. It's not there. What you are experiencing all the time and what you will only ever be able to experience is the present moment. And that's just the truth, you know? We can't look into the future. We can't experience something that didn't happen yet. And if you shift your focus onto that fact, onto the now, things just become a little bit easier, you know? They become manageable. Right now, in this moment, say you don't have enough money for the bills. You can do two things. Either you can go out and do something about it, whether that be do a second job or get some extra money and fix the problem, or if you don't have the ability to, you have to let it go. If there's nothing you can do about it, then what is stressing out about it and beating yourself up about it really doing? it's not doing anything. It's just making your life worse. And that's not going to help anything. That's not going to pay the bills. So you either do something about it or you accept it, you know? And it's easier said than done, you know, like, because this stuff is scary. You know, I've had moments where I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pay the heat, or if I was going to be able to pay the rent, you know, and that's a scary feeling. But something I always tried to tell my fiance is, you know, what can we do about it right now? You know, if there's nothing we can do about it right now, then we're just going to have to solve it later when that time comes. But usually, you know, I would Uber or do something like that to come up with the extra money. But that's the thing. That was the other option. I could do something about it. I could solve the problem. And thinking in that way, it changes your perspective, you know. I think it makes you stronger. It makes you stronger spiritually. It doesn't make you as, like, you can't be rattled as easily. You think clearer. You can make decisions better, you know. You can be at peace with so many of the terrible things going on in the world. It doesn't mean you have to be inactive. Just like I was saying, we can choose to fight against these evil people in power. You know, whether or not we succeed doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but we would all hope that we would succeed. But you got to recognize, if we don't succeed, what are you going to do, you know? Following in that pain after losing that fight, you know, it won't do anything. It won't solve the problem. There will still be a problem to be solved, and that's not going to solve it. I think you just move on and you accept it, or you think, okay, well, what can we do now? What can we do now to solve the present, or the moment? There were people fighting against the Nazis before they gained power. They recognized what was happening, and, you know, the people that were fighting against them before they gained power didn't succeed. But what happened in the future? You know, other people recognized the evil, they fought against it, and they succeeded. And I guarantee you the same people who fought against the Nazis, if they didn't get found out initially, you know, before they gained power, I'm sure they were part of the groups that were fighting against them while they were in power. And we can be those people. And I think presence enables us to do that. You know, if you lose and you go into despair and you lose your presence and you only think about the condition, or you think about the future or how it's doomed, then that's what it's going to be for you. You're not going to change anything, and you're going to just experience that. That's what your reality is going to be. But if you don't have to deny your situation, but if you're present and you recognize, okay, this is what it is right now, and I can either solve it or not solve it and try and accept it. That's your two choices, and that's really the only choices we have. We're coming to a point where, and Eckhart Tolle talks about this as well, he goes into that into sequel to The Power of Now. He thinks we're going to go into consciousness like evolution. Because once you hear about the power of now, it's kind of hard to, even if you don't practice it all the time, even if you slip up and you're not perfect at it, you know, nobody's going to be perfect at it. It's infectious. You will not be able to get rid of the idea. Once you see the power of the now, it's almost impossible to get rid of that idea. And the more people that find out about it, I really think human consciousness is going to evolve. And it's not going to make the world easier, you know. If anything, I think the world is going to get more difficult. But I think that's going to force us into that evolution. This is where I am at so far. Hopefully you can see that well. I used to be Christian, and I'm not going to go into depths into it. Maybe I'll make that another video another day, but I no longer believe in the common Christian belief. Ironically, I love Jesus still. I don't believe that he thought he was God. I think what he was trying to say in metaphor was we all have, I think it's similar to what Eckhart Tolle is saying. I think it's similar to what Buddhists believe. I think we have the power of God in us. I do think he believed that his ideas would change humanity for the better. And I think the fact that his message, you know, whether convoluted or manipulated or not, has had such an impact for such a long time because of the validity of his ideas. I think a lot of his messages about the kingdom of God have to do with consciousness and awareness and waking up. I'm not too privy on the details right now, and there's evidence for it. I'll link this video too. I saw a video about how a lot of Jesus's disciples misunderstood the point of Jesus's message. And I think that's true. There are a lot of what they call the Gnostic Gospels, which I think a lot of Christians believe are blasphemous and stuff, but these are the real Gospels of some of the 12 disciples and one from Mary that was forgotten or purposely hidden, that really go into depth into what Jesus was saying. Mary's an interesting one because Jesus taught Mary on the side, and it's possible that she was really the only one who truly understood what Jesus was trying to say about consciousness, about these types of things. And it's also possible that she was supposed to be the one to pass down, you know, Jesus's teachings, to be not the next Jesus per se, but to be the inheritor or the sole orator of what Jesus's message was. It seemed like Jesus trusted her enough to do that because she inherently understood a lot of what he was teaching that the other disciples just couldn't grasp. Very interesting. I'll link the video. I suggest you watch it whether you're Christian or not. Not to like disprove your faith or anything, just to watch it. It's interesting. You know, a lot of these Gnostic Gospels were discovered recently. Mary's Gospel was discovered in Egypt, I believe in the 1800s. It's just very interesting. There's missing stuff from it, just probably from it being old, it being hidden, burned, stolen, who knows, you know, it could be a number of things. But yeah, I highly suggest checking that out. Let me try and think if there's any other stuff I've been thinking about, maybe cool stuff. Oh, me and my fiance, we're almost finished watching. This will be my second or third time watching Attack on Titan. We're so close to the end. She has a problem of starting a show and then not being able to finish it, and she'll watch some other show and then come back and revisit the older shows she was watching. And for me, it's frustrating because, you know, I'll sit down and rewatch Breaking Bad for the 4th time, and that'll be the only thing I'll watch for like a month or two or something like that. And, you know, she's not that kind of person, so I'm like always begging her, like, let's watch Attack on Titan. Please, we gotta watch Attack on Titan. And, you know, we're close. We're on season 4. I don't want to say anything about it in case she watches this video. I don't want to spoil it. Please don't put spoilers in the comments. I love that show. Attack on Titan's great. I think the greatest manga of all time is Berserk, for sure. It's one of the greatest, I think, stories I've ever read in my entire life. I mean, it's just incredible. The art is incredible. The story is incredible. And I think the talent, Miura, I never knew how to pronounce his name correctly. Just incredible. I mean, the emotion in it, the artwork in it, the storytelling in it, the world building, it's incredible. I am collecting the deluxe volumes. I have up to 8 right now. If you haven't seen the Spider-Verse animated movies. Highly suggest them. I think that's one of the greatest human collaborative pieces of art that we've ever produced. It's incredible. But yeah, I can't wait for the third one to come out. Same with K-Pop Demon Hunters. It's a little cheesy, but it's animated by Sony Studios. Sony Studios animated the Spider-Verse movies as well. I think it's good. The animation is good. The music is good. The storyline is, you know, it's kind of basic, but it's emotional. It's fun. I think it's a good movie. It's been in the top 10 on Netflix for multiple times and broke records in terms of like how long it was on there consecutively. So I think it's, you know, it's worth a watch. Maybe we'll add some brush pen stuff in here. What should I name the robot? I like weird names like Bingus. Bingus is pretty good. I think I might go with Bingus. There we go. I'll write Bingus's name on there, and then we will be finished up. We'll put it right up here. Bingus! Exclamation point. There we go. Bingus is done. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. This is my first video, so it's probably dog shit. But, you know, just wanted to start doing that, and it's been something I wanted to do for a while. Here is Bingus. Hopefully you can see that well. Hopefully, yeah, you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys have a great day. Peace out, guys. This is Fabubrik, Nathan Fecko, whatever you want to call me. Deuces.